Welcome to Studio A. Our guest today is Reverend Donovan Coley Sr. He is the Chief Servant Officer at DSN International. Welcome to the studio, Pastor. Well, do you prefer Reverend or Pastor?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Just Donovan is fine.
Well, I will call you Reverend Donovan.
Thank you.
I will call you Reverend Donovan. Tell me, the last time you were on, we had a lovely discussion about your background, your childhood, and what you were doing at the rescue mission, and you had shared with us that you were stepping down. You stepped down in June of 2023, is that correct?
That is correct. June 30th, 2023.
June 30th, 2023. Why did you decide to step away?
You know, I tell you, I reflected on my ministry at the rescue mission.
Okay.
And then I started looking at life or ministry within the context of life, especially family. And as my family, they were growing, and we're now having grandchildren. And then just to reflect upon the grind and what it takes to really lead a strong, growing nonprofit in our city.
Okay.
It was important for my wife and I to really assess, you know, what does life look like beyond the rescue mission?
Okay.
And then I also was walking through a little bit of a health crisis. And you know, sometimes you're walking through a concern in your life, and thank God, you know, everything is good.
Everything is good.
But at the moment, it has a way of giving you perspective. And I think we need to analyze and to really look at life and to ask yourself, what is most important? And so we stepped back and we decided to establish a roadmap and a plan with the rescue mission.
Okay.
So that my departure coincided with the onboarding of a new CEO. So it was a beautiful transfer.
Okay.
And so I left primarily because of life and family, and I'm now enjoying my family, and at the same time I transitioned into a different role. So I'm continuing to serve in other ways that we'll discuss today.
Sure.
But it came down to what was most important.
What was most important? So
Yes.
the health crisis combined with the other things that you just shared
Yes.
brought it to a head for you
Yes.
to make the decision.
Yes.
And did you know what you were going to do next? Did the Lord reveal to you what you were going to do next? Did you seek out the Lord in what you
So
were
what
going to
is
do
so
next?
interesting about that is I'm continuing to do what I've always done, which is to empower individuals and to release people to be the best leaders that they can possibly be. You know, as I reflect upon how God works in my life, I think God's will is more practical than mystical. You know, there are some people who would want to seek and to somehow find, you know, that secret. And when you have this ongoing relationship with Jesus Christ, it is a daily walk. And so while there are some things that are just plain mysterious, when it comes to something like your life and your vocation, I think God calls upon you to look at what is the next best thing and what is that which is most practical that fits within the framework that you have established for your life.
Okay.
And so I came up with some priorities.
All right.
And so my wife and I, we decided that we're going to make faith the most important thing for us, our family. We wanted flexibility, we wanted fun, and we wanted to be frugal.
Okay.
And so as we came up with a grid, it's just a matter of now looking at what is the next thing to do. And what I saw was, how do we prepare the next generation? And so it's continuing leadership development, which was one of my main roles at the rescue mission anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, it is really to get the best team in place to execute the strategic plan of the Board of Trustees.
So what was the genesis of DSN?
And so Discipleship Stewardship Network, or DSN, simply is a network of young leaders where we're helping them to integrate their faith with their life. And so we're preparing these individuals.
Now this is just males?
Just males right now. And so
Okay.
we do have young women who are a part of the network.
Sure.
But from a formal standpoint right now, it's coming alongside these individuals and to say, as you think about your goals and your vision moving forward, how do you bring, understand your identity? You know, how do you develop the right kind of rhythm? And then thirdly, how do you establish a network and build the right relationships so that you can move forward? So it starts with identity, and then we work into the area of establishing rhythms and then relationships.
When you say identity, is it their identity in Christ?
Their identity in Christ. But let's say, for instance, it is not an individual who is pursuing a relationship with Christ. And so these are just good, wholesome, young individuals. We help them get in touch with who they are.
And this is college-age young men?
This is even beyond college
Really?
age. Yes. In fact, right before I came to this meeting, I was at one of those coffee shops sitting with a young man who is pursuing going to law school.
Okay.
And so we were just going through his plan, you know, from taking the LSAT to then getting the scholarships, etc.
Yeah.
And he qualifies for a lot of merit-based scholarships. And
That's
so he's
wonderful.
determining what school to go out of the 5.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, and he was seeking your counsel, your
Seeking
wise counsel.
Yes, and so for me, I'm sitting there talking to him about how do you integrate your faith to make sure that you're not pursuing a degree because of the persona of that particular law school. Does it really fit with who you are as an individual?
Sure.
And so we're just helping them to find the core of who they are.
Okay.
And then to live that out with the right kind of systems around them that will guide them.
How do you do that? How do you guide someone in learning the core of who they are?
Well, first of all, there must be a willingness, okay? And so one of the things that we do when there's a willingness to grow, then we help them develop what we call a life map or a plan.
Okay.
And so it's from a practical standpoint.
Okay.
Okay. And so once again, we talk about their identity.
Yeah.
We talk about the rhythms. What are the things that you need to do on a regular basis so as to maintain the core of who you are that reinforces, okay, your ethics, that reinforces your behavior, that reinforces your decision making. And so we get to the root cause and we work with those individuals as well. And then we help them build the network and the relationships and even help them to identify the key people that they need in their lives. And would you believe it? Often when they're at that particular age, the 23, 24, 25, we said, how's your relationship with your mother?
Really?
How is your relationship with your dad, if there's one in your life?
Yeah.
How do you nurture that?
Yeah.
Because when you're stepping into the next phase, you know, no person is an island, as we say. No man is an island.
Support.
You absolutely need that.
Yeah.
And so why enter into the world trying to find yourself when all you need to do is to reach back and start with your roots and get your roots and get yourself deep and grounded.
Yeah.
Make sure you have foundation, you have a sure footing. And so those are the things that we're doing with some of these individuals. And there are about 40 of them right now.
40?
In the network, 40.
Oh my goodness.
In the network.
When I was doing my research, I saw 20. So I'm shocked
it went
by
up to 40. In fact, we picked up another young man yesterday who is at University of St. Francis.
Okay.
And so he is pursuing nursing.
Wow.
And so that was really important for us to say, tell me about your plan.
Yeah.
You know what was so interesting?
What?
His mother was also in the meeting.
Really?
I mean, he drove, had his mom, and you can tell mom wanted to kind of get a feel, what kind of an organization is my son going to be talking to and possibly become a part of. And so it was exciting to sit and just to hear their story. And then we just share with them exactly as to who we are. And I got this beautiful thank you last night that he's excited about walking through this journey.
Yeah.
To, first of all, understanding who he is and just where he wants to go with his life.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So the numbers
That's
just keep growing.
That's awesome. Did you, let's go back to, because I'm not sure I clarified.
Sure.
when you left the rescue mission and you decided your next step, how did you know you wanted to do DSN? How did you know this is it?
Yes, and so being committed to leadership development and making sure that even when I was at the rescue mission and as we were building that team, and we grew a significant team, mentorship was always a big part of that.
Okay,
and so
a fundamental part.
It was fundamental. And so I'm thinking, what we need are leaders for the future, and if we can get a hold of them now, and then move them towards their goals, what it is that they choose, whether it's engineering or nursing or law, whatever it is, or being a mechanic. Okay. It doesn't have to be those who are pursuing institution. It's,
all right.
Yeah.
A wide variety of backgrounds.
Yeah. And so it was easy to make that switch.
Okay.
And so it was.
You saw the need.
I saw the need.
The need is there to guide young people, right now young men.
Yes.
Going from college to the workforce and careers.
Yes.
What they're going to do next.
Right.
Because they're falling in the gap. Yeah?
Yes, and to give them a vision beyond what they were already looking at for themselves. And so often a big picture.
Yeah.
And being a person who is a person of color, it's amazing the number of individuals who are now saying, so he did something with his life. I believe there is something that I can do with my life as well.
Given your background.
Yes, so it's actually an international group.
Okay.
There are at least 7 different nations represented in the network.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and so there are folks from all around the world who are now becoming a part of this network.
How does a young man become involved? How do they learn about your organization?
They would go to our website, dsnnetwork.com. And then you'll be able to see the profile and see what we do, and just look at where it says the ministry site, because you're going to see a for-profit and a not-for-profit.
What's the difference?
The difference is, as we're building our nonprofit, we're not going to go after the funding the way other nonprofits go after funding.
Okay.
We have the for-profit that actually funds our own nonprofit.
Okay, so it feeds back into the organization.
It feeds back into it because we also work with nonprofits, and we empower other nonprofits in our consulting practice on the for-profit side to be able to find funding. And can you imagine us competing with the very people that we're trying to help?
Sure.
And so that's why we have set it up where the for-profit funds the not-for-profit.
Funds the not-for-profit.
Yeah.
You can't do something like this alone. How many people do you have as part of your team?
I have 3 additional persons that are a part of the team.
Okay.
I have 2 male and 1 female.
All right.
And so just to give you general background, one of the young men who leads it, and you'll see their profile on the website, graduated with a business degree, with a law degree from IU.
Great.
And so he is committed to this process. Another one went to University of Colorado, where Deion Sanders is the football coach, and so he's a part of that as well.
All right.
And then the female who is a part of our team, she literally led one of the largest foundations in our region. And so as she has stepped away from that foundation, she's now a part of the team.
Okay.
But you can find that on the website.
Let me ask you, you said that there are internationals involved.
Correct.
Is this mainly for men of color? I mean, I imagine it's open to everyone, but is it primarily targeting men of color?
Multicultural. Multicultural. So we're talking from Asia, India, Africa, the Caribbean.
Sure.
And so it's individuals from different parts of the world who are coming together.
Okay.
So we are international in flavor, hence we are DSN International.
International.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me ask you, I know that it's faith-focused.
Yes.
How important is that?
I would say that's at the core of who we are, okay? However, the person coming into DSN doesn't have to be a person of faith where their faith is so clearly defined that we're going to put them in a box.
Right.
They might even be exploring what that looks like.
Okay.
What we want to do is to really look at the person and look beyond the things that often divide us, you know, often the things that create barriers. And we want to look at that person as a human being because there's a common humanity.
Sure.
And then try to encourage them to
Nurture
explore who they
what's
are. We
already
nurture
there.
it, and we're not imposing
Yeah.
anything on them. In fact,
Yeah.
when you look at our website, you won't even see that we are blatantly and arrogantly pushing faith, but it is the core of who we are.
Okay,
Yes.
I understand. Accountability is an imperative with your organization.
Yes.
Why?
I tell you, if you're walking in life, it's so important for you to get perspective from others, especially those who have been there before.
Yes.
And so we're talking about 20-year-olds. And so the way the culture and with all the cultural pressures and the pulls, while you're encouraging these individuals to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
Often, if that foundation was not laid properly, and if you want to put some guard rails, if you will, around them to say, hey, there is another way to do this. And so here is also some accountability. So there are brothers in your space that will come alongside you, but obviously it comes down to their own will.
Sure.
Okay? Nobody's forced to do anything.
Right.
But there is strict accountability because we're walking together towards integrating faith with life.
How long is the process?
This is a lifelong process. What we're hoping is that we can develop friendships to where these individuals would literally walk through life together and develop their own networks.
Okay.
So I remember a few years ago, it was me and 3 other African-American leaders in the city of Fort Wayne. The other 3 are still involved in significant nonprofit leadership.
Okay.
And we were sitting at a restaurant. And as we're sitting there in that restaurant, just encouraging one another, this was just a few years ago.
Okay.
We looked across the table and there was Ian Rowland, who was the beloved president and CEO for Lincoln Financial a few years ago. And he was sitting with 3 other gentlemen. And we're sitting there having our meeting.
Yeah.
And we're looking across. And the reason why I can use his name is that he became a mentor of mine, Ian Rowland.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I asked him, I said, tell me a little bit about the group that was sitting in that restaurant. And he looked at me and he said, Donovan, for 40 years, I've been meeting with these individuals, and these are my peers who have given me insight. They have given me accountability. They have given me resources. And he was saying, these are the men that have been a part of governing my life and my decisions. And I remember turning to the other brothers, the other 3 brothers
that you were with?
That I was with, and I'm relaying, and I said, do we have that in our community?
Yeah.
And we wanted to make that a big part of what DS said. And so it is these individuals coming alongside one another. What is so critical for us is we do have a core. There are 5 individuals that are being nurtured and discipled at a very high level. And then the plan is to then prepare them so that they can also develop a network of others who will then develop a network of others. And so that continues. Just keep building that. And I'm hoping that in 5, 10, 15 years, these individuals would have a core, and so they're more like a cohort. Yeah. Yeah, and so they're walking together as individuals who are looking out for what is in the best interest of each other. And so that's the culture that we are creating and have already started to see it outwork.
Okay.
In the lives of these individuals.
So you're seeing the fruition.
We're absolutely seeing it.
Already.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you, we've talked about why DSN is needed, because we've talked about the culture and how it affects young people. What is your ultimate goal for the organization?
The ultimate goal for the organization is that these individuals would emerge as leaders, and then they would also fill the gaps that we see in our society.
Okay.
There are some significant leadership gaps right now for folks who are balanced, who understand differences in each other, and who are able to navigate some of the ills that we see happening in society. And I'm actually speaking primarily of just being able to coexist with one another. As a community, if we're not bridging the divide that happens, and if we're still so bipartisan, and if we see ourselves as being on one side of the aisle versus the other, or the color, and if we're not bridging the gap, and being able to speak truth and to eliminate the nonsense that separates us and divides us, if we continue with that, then we're going to be shooting ourselves not only in the foot, but even in the head.
Okay.
And so we're preparing a generation of leaders who can navigate, who can do what we call cultural exegesis.
Okay.
You're able to understand what's happening in culture.
All right.
And then being able to find the things that unite you, and then just build life around the things that can unite us as a people, as opposed to raising up a generation that are so entrenched with their own narrow perspective and their viewpoints, whether it's religious or political, okay, or social. And so we're looking for, we want to train individuals who are eclectic, who understand and have a solid worldview.
Yeah.
Okay. And so for us, it's going to be rooted in a Judeo-Christian ethic.
Sure.
Okay. But then being able to embrace a world that is a lot different than the world that I grew up in 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
This is their world. This is their time. We're handing them a divided world. Now, they need to fix it. And so we want to help them fix it, by making sure they have the moral basis, the foundations to be able to navigate that kind of a world.
The tools.
The tools.
The tools that
Yeah.
they need. You're giving them the tools that they need.
Yeah.
When you were talking, I couldn't help but think about what's going on politically right now.
Sure. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It's a mess. It's a mess. It breaks my heart that we live in a society where if you're not thinking one particular way, okay, then you are immediately demonized.
Okay.
And so that's not the world that I want my grandchildren to grow up in. Okay, I think we can disagree and we can also coexist. Okay, and then I still have the privilege and the right to live out my faith. Okay, and I can at least tolerate you. I don't have to agree with you, your lifestyle, your choices, but I want to see, the God in you. I want to see the human in you, and I want to be able to respect you. Right now, I think they are demonizing each other on both sides, and some are louder than the other, and I'm saddened that the next generation have to deal with this kind of a thing.
When you look at the 60s, when we look at the 60s, we think of that as the most volatile time. And then January 6th happened, and you think, many things happen, but
Right.
January 6th is sort of the pinnacle.
Correct.
That let us know maybe we haven't come so far.
I think we find ourselves going backwards, and so we're agreeing with the book of Ecclesiastes. There's really nothing new under the sun. And so it's just a matter of seeing human nature. The things that were suppressed, the things that were hidden are now coming to light. And so there's really nothing new under the sun. And we see humanity versus humanity. And we're trying to fix that. So with the organization that God has entrusted to us, we are able to say, let's gather around the table. We don't have to agree. But you know what? We have to respect one another.
Well, and I think something to your point, one of the beautiful things that you stated was seeing the God
Yes.
in someone else.
Absolutely.
That changes the whole dynamic of how you engage.
Well, when you think about it in the book of Genesis, there's the imago Dei, the image of God. Okay? Now, everybody, as C.S. Lewis says, there's a God-shaped vacuum in each person. So there's a pursuit for truth.
Yeah.
There's a pursuit. And so I look at God through the lens of Scripture.
Yeah.
And so I see him as the God. But others are still on a journey in pursuit. And so I need to respect the fact that while I believe that I have the truth and that person is Jesus Christ, the Son of God, if you have embraced another perspective or another position, I'm going to respect you. I may disagree with you, but that isn't for me to demonize you.
Do you think there are many doors to heaven?
So from a scriptural standpoint, I would go to John 14:6, where Jesus made it very clear. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me.
Yeah.
And so I'm exclusively a person who affirms Jesus Christ as the Son of God.
Okay.
Okay? And so I would not embrace a pluralistic approach to God and many gods, but I would focus primarily on the person and work of Jesus, where you see the gospel explained in 1 Corinthians 15 in the first 3 verses, that Jesus died, was buried, and rose again from the dead. And so that is the central core of my beliefs as a Christ follower.
Yeah. Let me ask you something completely off topic.
Sure.
How did you know, what has made your relationship with Miss Grace so successful? You've been married how many years?
I've been married now 41 years.
41 years.
41 years.
And you have a good marriage.
Yes.
What is the secret?
I'm so glad you went there because, we can talk about ministry and we can talk about accomplishing things and building new buildings. At the end of the day, I have to go home to a family. And that was so important for me that became the foundation and the basis for me leaving the rescue mission. And so because I put more value on that. I'll tell you what happened when I came to faith, and I came to faith in a dramatic way where it's either life or death. Okay. And when God intercepted and interrupted my life, I had this radical transformation through Jesus Christ. And so I thought, I need to find a place to go to understand what this means. So I found a place called Youth for Christ. And I remember sitting in the back of this room watching other Christian young people, and my buddy Ray was sitting right next to me. And as we're sitting there, this young lady walked on stage, and she just opened her mouth, and I sensed humility. There was a sweetness, but also a cuteness. And I remember ribbing my buddy Ray, and I said, I'm going to marry that girl. And that was exactly how it happened.
Okay.
And then the next day, so that was a Saturday night. The next day, I then decided to find out what church he attended. And would you believe it? I'm taking a taxi. I'm heading to the church. And there she was walking to church. The church was not too far from her house.
Okay.
And so I then connected with her, and we became great friends, and then dated in over 5 years. And then we got married.
We have to wrap up. We're coming to the end, and I would love to learn more.
Quick.
It does go quickly, but
yeah,
something key you said, you became friends.
Yes, we became friends.
That is something integral to a successful relationship that has brought you through these 41 years. You're friends.
Yes.
You not only love her, admire her, and she admires you, but you're friends.
Yes. And what has kept us going
Your
every
faith.
single day, the first thing we do is we pray together.
Yeah.
That is just a simple process. If I'm in Manaus, on the Amazon, we're going to find time. I was in Phoenix, Arizona, 3 hours difference, and we made sure that we prayed. So wherever we are in the world, and so prayer has been a big part of us, living our lives.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're most welcome.
And thank you for coming in. And thank you for tuning in, and you be blessed.